Hello, all, and welcome back to Larry's Anything Goes. Today, we're going to have a interesting discussion in regards to investing in the quote unquote hood. It's a There's a lot of movements going on nowadays for people to, they call it buy back the block. And I think it's awesome. And I think more people should think about doing it for various reasons. But there's different ways to invest in the quote unquote hood, because that's always considered, well, depending on the city you live in, the cheapest part of town to live in. So it's always a place that always has opportunity for one to invest in if they have the right ideas, right resources, and right people around them, all at the same time. I remember growing up, and I would always hear, people saying, "Oh, let's not go to that neighborhood. It's bad. It's dangerous, etc., and so forth. You might lose your life if you go over there." And the funny thing is, majority of the quote unquote hood areas of the United States of America aren't the worst places to go to. And life in the suburbs is not the only way to go. That's usually what everybody says: move to the suburbs, move to small town America. That's the only way to go. Live in a major city, it's the worst thing on the planet. And I just think that's overrated. And I think that's why everybody else likes to take advantage of those great opportunities to invest in the hood when it comes to real estate, when it comes to just having lots of land, and et cetera, and so forth. So, because one crazy thing is true when it comes to owning property in the hood, or just in general. One thing is definitely true, is that eventually the economy will revitalize itself. No matter how you shape it, no matter how you form it, that's the beautiful thing about living in the United States. The economy will revitalize itself. So it's just something to think about. A great example. At one time back in the 1990s, Washington, D.C. was considered an economic crap hole. And now it's one of the most expensive cities to live in the United States. They're coming neck and neck with New York and Los Angeles and San Diego and whatnot in regards to the cost of living in the District of Columbia. And why is that? Because, well, one, they have a great economy, and two, their economy has exceeded beyond most people's expectations when the right investments were made. Now, yeah, there was the great thing of gentrification and all that good stuff that did happen, but that's inevitable to happen in any place, because when change comes, people have to adjust accordingly. And if you're living under the old-fashioned way of the lifestyle of the 1950s and 60s, to where you worked one job for 25 to 30 years and you retired and you paid off your mortgage in one house, but you don't have enough money put away or enough great investments put away in order for you to pay the personal property taxes on that property, then it's easy for you to lose that property, or you have no other choice but to sell that property because you can't afford the taxes on it. And I don't care what state you live in, for the most part, you're going to have to pay some sort of a property tax, because that's how your local and state governments function. They got to have some sort of taxes, some sort of revenue. And that's the downside for the folks that did live in those houses for generations and so forth. But that's what it is. You gotta own it. You gotta pass it down to the next generation, and the next generation has to be financially literate in order for them to carry on the property, and possibly for them to make a profit off of that property, or for them to constantly make a profit off of that property by renting it out, etc., and so forth. So, and then we go into another great example: Detroit, Michigan, declared bankrupt, bad government. A lot of bad decisions. The biggest city in the state of Michigan, turns into a crap hole. And this was generations, well, I'm sorry, not generations, but decades of bad government, people not thinking outside of the box. The rest of the country was moving forward, well, other parts of the country were moving forward, and when it came to different job opportunities and things of that nature, but they were still just relying on the motor industry to be their bread and butter. And if you've known any place in the United States, you can't just have one industry be your bread and butter. I live in the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area, and the one good thing about this area is that government is not the number one way of making money in this area. So there's other assets that are brought in this area, even though government is the number one bread and butter. But there's pages of other industries that reside in this area that helps somewhat sustain the economy in this area, and other major cities are doing the same thing. They're not just, they're capitalizing on that one industry in order to grow other industries, so they don't just have to depend on that one major industry. It's the best way to look at it. But back to Detroit. I'm sorry for getting off on my tangents, but back to Detroit. One great thing about that's happening in Detroit is you got a hell of a lot of foreign investors, people from other countries, buying properties in Detroit, pennies on the dollar. So say if this house costs $2, they're buying it for 25 cents. Or buying it for 5 cents, and what are they doing? They're paying contractors to revitalize it, and neighborhoods are being revitalized now as we speak, and other foreign companies are coming back to the city of Detroit. They're not motor companies, they're not the automobile industry, but they are other industries that are coming to the city because they see the potential. Two, I'm sure the city and the state's giving them great tax breaks, and three, they're bringing a different perspective into the city, and with that different perspective comes a different job market. It becomes different people getting educated in different skill sets instead of just working on the factory floor. Nothing wrong with working on the factory floor. I'm just saying, because at the end of the day, a job's a job. All I'm saying is they are evolving past from the good old days of Detroit being the quote-unquote motor city. They're moving on, and they're trying to adjust accordingly. So if you're in the market to buy property, you might want to check Detroit or the surrounding counties of Detroit, Michigan, excluding Flint, obviously. And a lot of great cheap properties are there for people to buy at $15,000 to $20,000, sometimes a couple $100. And if you got the right mindset and especially the right team of people, you can definitely possibly make a profit, because people are starting to come back to the city because it's being revitalized. I mean, heck, I saw an apartment complex. The interior needed a lot of work, but the exterior looked great. And it was apartment complex that had about 13 units, and they were only selling it for $100,000. I don't know where you live, but where I live, that's a steal. And if I had the right amount of people around me, I would definitely buy it, and we could put some money into it, and hey, we could flip it. But that's another story. And then other great examples opportunities that are out there. You could make money off of HUD, Housing Urban Development Agency. What do? The bread and butter is what? Giving people, especially investors and developers, money to build affordable housing. Now, depending on the state that you live in or the city that you live in, they might advise against that sort of thing, or they might welcome that sort of thing, because you're giving a chance to cut down on the homelessness within that particular area by building affordable housing, and that's guaranteed money if you build that. If you build those houses, or if you purchase a specific building and you revitalize it and make sure it's to the specific standards of that city, state, and the HUD organization, and you're guaranteed that money. And let's kill the whole all people that are on welfare are going to mess up your property. No, I think it's just like anybody else. You have some good tenants, you got bad tenants. Let's just keep it on, because if that was the case, then nobody would ever want to rent to any HUD recipients. Let's just keep it real on that one. They would never be able to find a place to rent if that was the case. So, and then another great thing, I learned this yesterday, and this was actually very interesting. So in Mississippi, they actually are giving people the opportunity, if they pay $900, they can buy 5 to 10, 15, 20 acres of land. And the state actually, because I guess they're having a population problem in regards to, they got so much land, but they don't have enough people to occupy that land. So if people give the state $900, the state will give you a specific amount of acres, and they will actually give you supplies to build on that land, whether you want to build houses, build commercial lots, buildings, etc., and so forth. I call it another version of the Homestead Act, because, that was, the great days of the Wild Wild West, when the West was won after the Mexican-American War, where the federal government was giving land away to people with the caveat, obviously it was a deal, that they could, they'd have to farm that land, they'd have to build homes, churches, build businesses, etc., and so forth on that land. And that was the deal. It's a pretty good deal for the most part. So when I hear about the whole quote unquote bad areas of a city, I see opportunity. I see opportunity, and I hope you see opportunity at the same time, because the greatest thing, the craziest thing happens when you see the quote unquote bad areas, because when it comes down to investing in the hood, you can make a decent profit. And you want to know why? Because the crazy thing that every neighborhood has to have, if it doesn't have it, for the most part, you can bring it to the neighborhood. And what is that crazy thing? Most neighborhoods in this country need some sort of grocery stores. Like you go to New York, they call it bodegas, corner stores. They need places to eat, so little family restaurants, beauty shop, barber shop. If you go to the hood, you're going to see a barber shop and a beauty shop. The beauty hair supply store, etc., and so forth. They need that. Why? Because if I need to buy hair, which I don't have any, obviously, but if I was a female and I need to buy hair or do whatever with my hair and whatnot, if I had the choice between going to the beauty supply store within my neighborhood or going to have to go to one across town, I would imagine that's what that young lady would want to do. But that's just my opinion. Barbershop, same thing. Guy needs to get his hair cut. Boom, walk down to the barbershop, just like the movie Barbershop. The neighborhood barbershop. All neighborhoods need them. It's like that crazy thing. You need someplace to eat. You need to buy your groceries, etc., and so forth. So those are the opportunities. And the craziest thing is, I know people is like, well, it's dangerous, etc., and so forth. Well, you're an American. Why are you scared? This is your country. Why are you scared to go someplace? Man up, woman up. Come on now. It's not like you're in a, if the neighborhood is that bad of a war zone, then go find another one. That's how I look at it. But this is why I respect immigrants the most, because they'll go to a neighborhood. Doesn't matter what country they come from. They'll go to the hood, quote unquote hood. They'll open up a grocery store. They'll open up a dry cleaners. They'll open up a restaurant. They'll open up a little convenience store. There might be some bars on there. There might be some bulletproof glass window up there and whatnot. But they open up those businesses. They'll open up a gas station because they see the opportunity. Because the crazy thing is, if you have the only gas station in the whole neighborhood, what is that crazy thing called that you have? A monopoly over the whole thing. Because if I'm trying to get gas, I'm not going to the other side of town. If I see one right down the street from my house, that's where I'm going. Like most neighborhoods throughout the United States of America. Crazy thing. So that's why I respect the immigrants. The ones that come here with money, the ones that don't come here with any money and start from the bottom and have 3 to 4 families living in the house, guess what? There's a reason behind it. So don't ever look down on people that are doing that, because guess what? They're going to be in a better place than you are, because they are playing the money game in a smart way instead of playing it in a nonsense status way. So the guy that has the crappy car and owns a little corner store is doing much better than the guy that has a nice car and has to go to work every day for somebody else and make them money. So that's just food for thought and nutrition for the whole brain. And I bring this topic up because, I'm on social media a lot, like most of the world nowadays. And, I see a lot of, let's say about 10 of them, a lot of people, 10 people, constantly talking about the performance of high-paid sports teams and high-paid actors and actresses, people in the entertainment business. And and I'm especially talking to the brothers on this one. Why can't 10 of us get together and have a long, in-depth discussion about putting our finances and resources into something so that we can purchase cheap properties, form businesses, or just make money off of people that want to rent from the properties that we own? It's crazy. Or go and just buy into a franchise. I mean, hey, look, it costs $7,000 to buy into a cleaning company. Now, most people don't have $7,000 just, burning in their pockets and whatnot. But if you get enough people together, hey, we could formulate a business like that and say John takes care of the contracts piece of that business. Sam runs the operations piece. And Mike takes care of the supplies and the logistics and et cetera and so forth. All these people working the business and still working a full-time job and getting the right workers to work that specific business when it comes to the cleaning contracts. It's a great thing. And then guess what? All that I just mentioned, you already know what I'm about to say. That's tax deductible. It's a beautiful thing, I know. But, hey, if you don't have the money, another great way. Set up a crowdfunding program online. Let people become investors. And here's a crazy thing. Treat it like the stock market or an IRA. When they become investors, say, okay, now you sign this specific contract before we take your money. And this is the shares that you will get back if, and hence the word if the business performs at the rate that we expect it to perform. Okay, and you put down the numbers that you expect the business to perform at, and you tell them what they are expected to get a return on their investment once the business starts to grow and thrive. It's a crazy thing, but it could definitely work. And if it doesn't work, then hey, the contract is signed. They gave you the money, it didn't work out, but hey, you don't owe them anything because hey, they invested into a LLC, a limited liability corporation, and like anything else, any other investment, the investment didn't work. And then we could usually when you go to the hood, you see dollar stores, any franchises like that could work, because when you're buying real estate in the hood, depending on the city that you live in, the real estate is dirt cheap a lot of times. And that's why a lot of developers and investors have bought the real estate in the hood dirt cheap and flipped it. Depending on where you live at, it's much cheaper compared to cities like New York, Miami, Los Angeles, or Washington, D.C. The real estate could be cheaper to those standards. The economy might be different, but you just never know. It could be in Topeka, Kansas, or Kansas City, much cheaper compared to Miami and New York, et cetera, and so forth. So the main things when it comes down to economic opportunities and possibilities of an area, you gotta really say to yourself, okay, well, are corporations opening up offices there, plants there, et cetera, and so forth? Do you see Tesla, opening up an office there? It's just one of those things to take into consideration, because once those questions have been answered, then you try to start that good old implementation process, But the first thing has to do with starting a good old thing called a great conversation with the right people. And that, my friend, is the hard part nowadays. And I look at it like this. What was it? On Monday, I heard somebody having a discussion about Tiffany Haddish getting into trouble with Beyonce and Jay-Z. I got nothing against Tiffany Haddish, Beyonce, or Jay-Z. And she went to a party of theirs and supposedly, quote unquote, revealed the secret, even though she didn't really reveal the secret. I just said, who cares? Who gives a damn? When it's like it kills me. It's like Jay-Z, Beyonce, and Tiffany Haddish are not worried about Larry Patterson. So why does Larry Patterson need to worry about what they're doing when it comes to their parties and their personal lives? I don't give a damn. So I just keep it simple on that one. But anyways, all I can say is when you're looking into certain areas, in this quote unquote hood, it could be very lucrative and profitable if you get with the right people who have the right mindset and are ready to put the resources towards something that's going to make them do more than just shine and twerk and all that other crap that don't mean anything after you do it. So put our minds, money, and any other resources that we can towards more positive things like that, and we can come out on top. So this video went a little bit longer than I expected, but I guess I got on my soapbox for too long. But food for thought. I challenge you. Invest in the hood. Want to talk to me about investing in the hood? Inbox me, email me. Let's get something going, because time is money, and we're about to run out of time. So take it easy, and if you like the video, please give it a thumbs up.